The third installment of the Last of Us franchise has been greatly anticipated by fans of the series. The creative director Neil Druckmann has stated that The Last of Us Part 3 is currently under development, and players who want to see Ellie and Joel's story continue, well, get excited because the announcement is real. The Last of Us Part 3 is happening. Today, that's what we're going to cover. Hey, what's up guys? Zach here and welcome back to VGL. Like I said, in today's video, we're going to be covering everything that we know so far about The Last of Us Part 3, and we'll talk a little bit about the gameplay as well as the characters that the new game could follow. If you're excited for The Last of Us Part 3, be sure to drop a like on this video, subscribe with your notifications turned on, and now let's just deep dive into everything that we know about The Last of Us Part 3. So first, I think it'd be a good idea to cover everything we know about The Last of Us franchise so far. There's been two games in the series, as you guys know, The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2. So for anybody that has not played The Last of Us Part 1 or The Last of Us Part 2, now's your time to leave. This is your spoiler warning, so if you don't want to hear about the ending of The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2, now's your time to queue out and skip towards the end of the video where I talk more on The Last of Us Part 3. So starting things off is The Last of Us Part 1. At the end of the first game, Joel and Ellie have arrived at the Firefly Hospital, where the Fireflies plan to operate on Ellie to create the cure for the cordyceps infection. However, Joel finds out that the procedure will kill Ellie, and that they actually need to remove a part of her brain that will make her immune. Now, in this morally complex decision, Joel chooses to save Ellie rather than let her die for the potential cure. He goes on a violent rampage through the hospital, killing most of the Fireflies, and including the leader, Marlene. Now, after saving Ellie, who is unconscious and unaware of the events that Joel did, Joel then lies to her, telling her that the Fireflies has already found another immune person and had stopped searching for a cure, in which the game now ends, and Ellie is now suspicious, asking Joel to swear that everything he told her was true. Joel swears, and though Ellie seems unconvinced, she accepts his word, and the game cuts to black, and that is the end of The Last of Us Part 1. And now we pivot to The Last of Us Part 2, which is a much darker and more complicated story, split between the two main characters, being Ellie and Abby. Now with Ellie's arc, the story picks up a few years after the events of the first game. Joel is killed brutally by Abby, the daughter of the Firefly surgeon. Joel killed in the hospital, which sets Ellie on a path of vengeance. Ellie spends most of the time tracking down Abby, driven by rage and the need for revenge. Along the way, Ellie's actions lead to a devastating consequence with her relationships and mental health. And the climax of Ellie's story happens when she finally finds Abby. Despite nearly drowning Abby in a fight to death, Ellie ultimately chooses to let her go, breaking the cycle of violence left before. Now, the game also follows Abby's perspective. As you know, Abby did kill Joel and faces her own challenges, including the collapse of her group, the Washington Liberation Front, and also the attempt to protect Lev. Abby's journey humanizes her, showing the complexities of revenge and the cost of violence on both sides. In Abby's ending, she is captured and tortured by the group called the Rattlers, but Ellie frees her. Abby escapes with Lev, seeking a new start, and possibly where the next game will take off. And now wrapping up The Last of Us Part 2, the final scene of the game. The game ends with Ellie returning to the farmhouse where she once lived with her girlfriend Dina. However, the house is now empty as Dina's left. Ellie picks up her guitar, but she's unable to play due to losing both of her fingers in the fight with Abby. She leaves the guitar behind and walks away, suggesting that she's finally ready to move on from her obsession and revenge, though that future remains uncertain. Both endings reflect the game's exploration of morality, trauma, and the endless cycle of violence left before. And now we know where the previous games have left off, and now we've made it to The Last of Us Part 3. So now we can talk about the potential plot lines for The Last of Us Part 3, the recent updates and rumors. So yeah, let's break it down, let's cover everything, and let's dive deep. So this breakdown is completely credited to 9meters.com, where they did an article basically breaking down everything that you need to know about The Last of Us Part 3, where they left off in the previous games, and where we can look forward to the next couple games. And also, not to mention, the Last of Us HBO series is going on, so that kind of gives us some insight of what we can expect for the series there. So the article starts off by saying that The Last of Us Part 3, the latest updates and rumors. Fans of the Last of Us series are eager for news about the third installment. Neil Druckmann, the creative director, has confirmed that The Last of Us Part 3 is now in development. This announcement has sparked excitement among players who want to continue the story of Ellie and Joel. Naughty Dog, the game's developer, is now working on new projects. While details on The Last of Us Part 3 are scarce, the success of the HBO TV show has increased interest in the franchise, and the game story and characters are key to that appeal. The fans are curious about where that plot will go next. The release date for The Last of Us Part 3 is still unknown. Naughty Dog is known for taking their time to create high-quality games, and fans will need to be patient as they wait for more updates in the game's progress and the features to come. Now on to a new chapter of The Last of Us franchise. The development status is officially confirmed, but the early stages are not. Naughty Dog Dog creative director Neil Druckmann has confirmed that the story's outline for The Last of Us Part 3 exists, and the game is in active development, but it's still in its very early stages. And like I said previously, there is no release window that has been announced yet. And speaking of the release date and release window, while The Last of Us Part 3 has been officially confirmed to be in development, like I said, there's no official release date announced yet. But considering that the game is still in the early stages of development and Naughty Dog's meticulous approach to development, some insiders are claiming that the game's release window will be set to 2027 or later. They go on by saying that this is worth noting that this is purely speculative and subject to change based on the game's development process. Now covering the potential storyline in the characters, and does Ellie's journey actually continue? Well, while the specific plot details remain scarce, it's safe to assume that Ellie will likely be the central character again. The ending of The Last of Us Part 2 left many questions unanswered, leaving room for exploration in The Last of Us Part 3. But rumors do suggest that the next game could introduce some new characters and explore different factions in this post-apocalyptic world. Now talking about the gameplay and the mechanics of The Last of Us Part 3, it is expected that The Last of Us Part 3 will build upon the core gameplay mechanics from the predecessors, with refinements and potentially some new features. This new game might also introduce some new infected types or survival challenges. As well, the narrative could explore some more complex moral choices and their consequences followed behind. Now talking about the platforms that The Last of Us Part 3 will most likely be available on, The Last of Us Part 3 is almost certainly going to be developed on the PlayStation 5, and following that pattern of the previous installments, a PC port is likely to be released later. And now there are some major key points to talk about when we say The Last of Us Part 3, and this is the key takeaways. So now we know that the development status for The Last of Us Part 3 is confirmed in the early stages. We also know that the release date is not confirmed as of yet. The platforms that The Last of Us Part 3 will be available on is the PlayStation 5 and likely the PC. The expected protagonist is Ellie, and following the story of The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2, The Last of Us Part 3's story will most likely be exploring the aftermath of The Last of Us Part 2. The gameplay mechanics will be building on the existing mechanics and possibly adding some new features. And on another note, the HBO show has definitely boosted the interest of the game series. So like I said, The Last of Us Part 3 is now officially in development. There's been no release date announced for the game yet. But on another note, we can also talk about the development and the creative direction for The Last of Us Part 3. So as we know, The Last of Us Part 3 is taking shape under Neil Druckmann's guidance, the team working on the new story ideas and gameplay features to push the series forward. Neil Druckmann, the creative director, has hinted that the plans for The Last of Us Part 3, he said that there's at least one final chapter left in the story of Ellie and Joel. This suggests that the game will wrap up their journey. Druckmann is also known for his strong storytelling skills, and he aims to create an emotional story that connects with players. The team is most likely working on the script that will bring the series to a satisfying end. Now, the writing process for The Last of Us games often involves multiple writers. For The Last of Us Part 3, Naughty Dog may bring in new talent to work with Druckmann. This could add fresh ideas to the story. The writers will need to build a complex relationship from the first two games. They'll also have to deal with the fallout of The Last of Us Part 2's events, and the goal is to create a story that feels true to the characters and the world around them. There's definitely a lot of hype surrounding The Last of Us Part 3, especially now with how many fans are jumping over from The Last of Us HBO series. For sure, like I said, a lot of hype to live up to, but I feel like with Neil Druckmann at the helm, we're in safe hands. A lot of fans are looking forward to this game. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about The Last of Us Part 3. Are you excited for the new game? Are you excited for the new season of The Last of Us HBO series to come back? Be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. This has been Zach with VGL. I'll catch you guys in the next one.